Welcome back, Lemonsterites, for the April episode of Representing Leominster, and I am thrilled to be joined with one of my favorite state representatives and delegation members, Representative Zlotnik. Don't tell the others I said that. From Gardner and surrounding communities. We're just really grateful. I feel like this may be your fifth time on the show.
It's been a few times because I've been at both locations. I think it's been a couple years since we've done this, but glad to be back.
Yeah, glad to have you. We're in April, so budget season's heating up. We're about to have our last public hearing for the budget tomorrow, and committee hearings that were like really underway this week. I have two bills being heard, which was a big surprise, and we're excited to get that going and start to get that public testimony done. How is the new session going for you so far?
It's been busy, a lot going on. I'm on 3 of the 4 committees I'm on, my first time ever serving on those committees. So that's keeping me pretty busy, just getting up to speed with the new topics, the new terminology. I think what we sort of take for granted sometimes is that when you go into a new subject area like that, there's a whole bunch of acronyms you have to learn, a whole lot of terms you have to learn. So actually we're working on kind of a glossary for one of the committees because it's a whole lot of stuff that we haven't really done too much with in the past. So to get up to speed, to make sure that we can understand what's being told to us.
Yeah, we're on 2 new committees. I'm really excited, the Judiciary and TUE, Telecommunications, Utilities, and Energy, but those are 2 hefty committees in terms of subject matter and number of bills that they see. So I feel the same. There's a little bit of a steep learning curve. And one of the really cool things about the state legislature is, especially in the House, like you get to be jack of all trades and learn a little bit about a ton of different issue areas. Are there things that you're excited to be like digging into on your new committee work?
Yeah, so one of my new committees for this term is agriculture, which might be named agriculture and fisheries. In my district, obviously, we're less concerned about the fisheries, but agriculture is obviously a big part of central Mass, and I have a number of farms in my district, and I think coming out of COVID, my constituents have been more interested in where their food comes from. We've seen a huge growth in the number of farmers markets, the amount of business being done there, and that's all very positive, and I look forward to working with that committee. It's only the second time that committee has existed, specializing just on agriculture. So I think it's an important thing. I'm very excited about that work.
Yeah, for folks who missed the change last session, we used to have a committee on environment, natural resources, and agriculture, and they split it up because agriculture really needed kind of its own space to grow and to make sure that we're focusing on the issue areas. I think some of our colleagues might take for granted that we actually do grow a whole lot of our food here, especially in Central Mass.
And importantly, there's also a lot more potential to grow more food, which is important for a few reasons. One, we all need food, but 2, it has an economic benefit, especially as we talk about how to drive the economy in more rural parts of the state. Agriculture and agritourism are 2 big ways that we can achieve that.
Yeah, and it's something that I definitely think we've seized upon in North Central Mass. Another area of bills that you've worked on is a lot around like microbreweries and small craft breweries and this kind of convergence of those 2 worlds. Right,
that is one thing I've done quite a bit on. The beer tends to get the most attention, but anytime that we're adding value to a crop, is very good for farmers, very good for that local economic output. Think of things like Smith's Country Cheese in Winchendon that has invested a lot of money. There's been some MDAR grants around fertilizer, which dairy farms are great at producing, but also making different products that can last on the shelf longer, have a bigger market value. That all helps, with the business side of the farm, helps those farms stay in business. Farming isn't an easy business to be in. So anytime we can help producers add value to whatever it is they're producing, whether it be meat or dairy products or vegetables, still a benefit to the community, but also a benefit to those businesses as well.
Yeah, and just to stick on the agricultural theme, something that you and I have both kind of tag teamed in the budget has been support for a really incredible organization that now exists in Leominster and in Gardner, Growing Places. Can you talk a little bit about the work that Gardner has kind of created some new space for Growing Places to expand their work?
So the piece that brought Growing Places to Gardner was we had an elementary school that we built a new one, not using that one, and so we've worked with them through a lot of state funding to build out a space for them to have their own kitchen and processing facility where they are doing exactly that. They're adding value to crops that are produced locally. And that's really important for a number of reasons. One, it created another bulk buyer for small farms, which is, again, important to the economic vitality of these, especially small farms. It allows for that produce to be processed and that value to be added in the community, which cuts down on transportation costs, makes it more readily available to the local community, and then kind of unique to Growing Places through their partnerships with different programs to help out people in need and people suffering from food insecurity, to make sure that food is getting to where it's needed, especially seniors. And one story I'd like to tell specifically in regards to that is that Growing Places at their processing facility in Gardner has a butternut squash peeler, although I'm told it can also cut other kinds of squash, but it can peel and dice squash, which is something that I had not thought of as a problem before, but talking to food pantries, with a range of vegetables, but especially with squash, that are difficult, especially for our seniors to prepare. This machine, now they're given a container with cubed squash that is very easily cooked and eaten, and that's very good, helps the farmers, and helps the people at the end of the end consumer as well.
Yeah, we just took a tour of the new facility in Gardner, and it just to imagine Growing Places was doing their processing out of this little tiny garage in Leominster, and they had made their own freezer, and they had done, they did everything that they possibly could to maximize that space. But to be able to see this new space and this new potential and the way that they're really combining resources across the region, that they're going to be able to compost. It's not compost, it's some other way of processing the waste, but turning it back in the form of fertilizer to the farms. It's just a really amazing
Right, and for the economics of it, one thing we hear from small farms all the time is, the ebb and flow of the marketplace, right? And, if you have a down week at a farmer's market where you're relying on, for your business and for your income and to be able to pay your staff, well, now this creates someone who can buy in bulk and kind of smooth out those edges because they can buy it, they can process it, and they have customers. They have, institutional customers as well as local community partnerships. So it's really a win-win all around. And I think the viability of it is really strong.
And for anyone who receives SNAP benefits and haven't been taking advantage of the Healthy Incentives Program, please reach out. If you're a Leominster resident, if you're another resident, Growing Places has really tried to make sure that folks could access the Healthy Incentives Program at their home. They do home delivery. There has been a little bit of a change in the funding. We're working right now to get it increased in the supplemental budget to make sure those benefits go back up to their regular level. But it is a way to make your SNAP dollars go that much further, that you can buy fresh local produce from our local farms. And it's just been a really, really great opportunity that Growing Places has seized upon to make sure that more of our local food is being consumed locally. And so with kind of the budget upon us, are there any other things that you're working on that you're excited about highlighting?
Well, I think this is going to be a tough budget year. This is my 13th budget debate that we're preparing for at the end of the month. And I've seen up budgets, I've seen down budgets, I've seen budgets that had surpluses in the billions, and budgets that barely broke even at the end of the year. State budgeting is very difficult, and especially now we're balancing a number of different issues. Coming off COVID, revenues are starting to balance out and kind of return to normal rates of growth. Massachusetts saw incredible growth in FY21, 2, and 3, but that has really slowed back to what we were experiencing before. So that's going to mean that we're going to have to make some tough choices around what we can afford to invest in. And obviously, there's a litany of cuts that are in some form coming from the federal government that we're going to have to decide what we can make up the difference, what we can get creative around, and what, quite frankly, we're not going to be able to do. And this is the first time in a while that we've been faced with those kind of decisions in a budget. It is going to be challenging. And every budget I've been a part of, more than a decade now, there's always something that comes up that a crisis emerges, or a need for funding or investment, an opportunity, that comes in 6 months into the fiscal year that you weren't expecting, that we have to adjust to. That's always part of the the challenges that we face in a budget. This year, I think especially, is going to be challenging.
Yeah, I think how I've been centering my budget advocacy has been really focusing on, with all the uncertainty and some certainty of cuts happening at the federal level, like, let's hold as strong as possible as we can at the state level, because folks are going to need these resources more than ever. But we know that we're facing all of these unprecedented challenges in terms of hospital care and access to essential services. In this most recent supplemental budget the governor put out, she included some extra supports for our EMS services. They have been strapped particularly and stretched particularly thin because of the closure of Neshoba Valley Medical Center. It is just really hurting a lot of particularly small towns that don't have the capacity to do those extended rides to another hospital. But those are problems that aren't going to get solved overnight. So it's great that we have this kind of interim 1 year extra burst of resources. But you have been kind of navigating a lot of challenges with Haywood Hospital and also seeing this small community hospital come out on the other side of these challenges, honestly, stronger than a lot of us had hoped for.
Yeah, I think in many ways, our experience with Haywood Hospital and the struggles that they went through immediately following COVID, I think in many ways, because we were smaller, because we were then and still are, thankfully, an independent community hospital, we were kind of the canary in the coal mine. There's been larger bankruptcies in healthcare since then that have taken a lot of the column inches and headline space, but very much so, we went through that sort of struggle earlier in the process than others are. But certainly, the landscape in healthcare right now, there are a lot of financial struggles, even from larger, more established institutions that had been weathering these changes better from a financial point of view. But we were very relieved. It was a lot of work by a lot of people, a lot of support from the state that allowed Haywood and Athol Hospital to survive, and not only survive, but emerge from the bankruptcy, remaining an independent community hospital, which there were times that was, we were very worried that we would get gobbled up, by a bigger outside entity, that we would lose control, that we would lose services, and that hasn't been the case. Actually, in the midst of the bankruptcy, Haywood Hospital in Gardner reopened their inpatient mental health unit, which is very, very sorely needed out here and has been challenging, but the hospital was committed to doing that. And the hospital has also expanded the services it offers to mothers and expected mothers and maternal health care in general. For many years, the birthing center at Haywood Hospital has been very highly regarded. I was born there some 35 years ago, but it's an important part of sort of the fabric of the and sort of the net of healthcare services that they offer to the not just to Gardner but to the whole North Central community. Very glad to see those resources expanding. We actually have something there this afternoon to talk about the way those services are going to continue to expand and grow and offer people more options for that type of healthcare locally.
And we're really excited about this discussion, to continue this discussion throughout the entire process of the proposed closure and closure of the birthing center at Leominster Hospital. I mean, we lifted up Haywood Hospital. They saw half of the families of Leominster, and we're making it work, and we're committed to maintaining that, because it was just really critical to the families who needed those services. But we have an opportunity to invest in community-based solutions. We're seeing a lot of midwifery practices and community-based out-of-hospital birthing centers, trying to figure out how do they hold space and create that community space throughout Central Mass. Cassie and I got to meet with one of the groups out of Worcester who do a lot of home births up in our area, but they're going to be opening their first physical birthing center location by the end of the year, which is really an amazing resource. And they operate at a much more efficient rate than maybe a birthing center in a hospital, but they're a really important place to make sure that folks can we have the capacity within our region to support families that are expanding.
Well, and I think one of the things, in the last few years, I've learned more about healthcare financing and hospital budgets than I ever thought I would or probably would want to. But I will say, I mean, it is a challenging time for healthcare. There's a lot of changes, a lot of moving parts, and obviously demographic shifts in Massachusetts are a big piece of that. And certain parts of what a hospital does are less profitable. Certain parts are more challenging, and certain parts are much more complicated from a regulatory standpoint, from an insurance standpoint, from a payer mix standpoint. All those things come into play, which is why, again, we're really excited, about the expansion of mental health services, the reopening of the mental health unit, and the expansion of maternal health care as well, while maintaining, the other services that we've come to expect, and that our community really does need.
Yeah. Yeah, no, we've been really lucky to be able to point to just how a community hospital can thrive and stay committed to its mission and work in much more rural communities in terms of Gardner and Athol and figure out how to protect the public health of its community.
Right, and again, I mean, they are really sorely needed. Everything from, again, birth to cancer treatment, primary care, everything in between. Obviously, the emergency services are the only ones in the area. And the further west you go, the more true that is. So it's very important. And I think, again, knowing all those challenges and seeing what that institution has been able to keep together, I think is really something in this landscape.
Yeah, so as we wrap up our time, one of the questions that I often ask my guests is, for folks who are thinking about getting more active in local government, in state government, in federal government, and making their voice heard, you've been doing this for 13 years. What advice do you have for someone who maybe is a little resistant but wanting to get more involved? Like, how should they go about it? What's the easiest way to get involved?
And you want me to encourage people,
yes,
right?
Yes, I want you to encourage people.
Yeah. So I'll start by saying it is really important. Local government is very important. So many of the things that Natalie and I do and that our colleagues do across the state is only possible if there's strong partnerships with local officials, and that's across the board. Boards of select boards, mayors, city councilors, school committee members, and then the umpteen boards and commissions that exist in every community all serve an important part of how we develop and grow our communities, how we keep people safe, and how we have the things in our community that we want. So I would say, look at what skills you have. Look at what skills you have. Does it fit towards a board and commission? Being in public office is tough, and I always encourage people to think these things through. But it really is needed. And I think especially on the municipal side, a lot of these positions are volunteer, or maybe a couple $100 a year and a stipend, and that makes them all the more important because that expertise, protects a community and also enables it to grow.
Yeah, and I'm going to take this opportunity to remind folks that since the pandemic, we have instituted hybrid hearings, and so many Leominster residents have been able to make their voices heard in the committee hearing process. We are masters of very few topics and kind of jack of all trades, right? We know about like an inch deep. And so it's one of the things that I rely on Leominster residents to help me understand issues that I don't have work experience or lived experience in. And so if you're interested in testifying about an issue you care about, reach out. We're happy to help you sign up for that hearing, understand the process, prep your testimony, help you write and draft your written testimony so that you can make your story heard. We are hosting a Leominster resident at the State House on Wednesday who's going to be testifying about a bill that she wrote together with our office, and it's made it out of committee before. It's passed in the House, right? Like, these are really incredible opportunities for us to make sure that we're solving problems that you're seeing, because there are 7,000 bills filed every session, and there's a lot of work that goes into getting them all the way through the process to the governor's desk, and everyone is a critical part of that advocacy. So, Representative Zlotnik, thank you for taking the time to come and chat with us today.
Great to be back.
And good luck with everything going on with the new session.
You too.
Thanks, Jon. See you all next month.